the other misconception is, I know a lot of clients and friends of mine kind of struggle with this all or nothing. It's like, well, if I can't do an hour, is it even worth it? If I only have 10 minutes, is that really going to do anything? It is going to do something. And I think that's, especially being a mom, that's what we have to shift away from that mentality, because no, while you're in the season of raising kids, you're not going to have an hour to yourself most of the time. Like maybe here and there, and it'll be glorious and take advantage, right? But it's not going to be your everyday. And so I think if just knowing that a 10-minute walk around your neighborhood, that's amazing. That's so good to be able to get steps in throughout the day. 10, 15-minute circuit doing squats, again, deadlifts, push-ups, and rows. That's perfect because it's going to add up over time. If you do that 3 times a week, that's, you're almost at a full hour there versus nothing, right?
Welcome to the Erie Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Brunetti. Each week, I sit down with local doctors, therapists, wellness professionals, and community voices to have thoughtful, real conversations about what it actually means to feel better. This podcast was created because wellness can feel overwhelming. My goal is to help cut through that noise by highlighting trusted resources right here in our community and having conversations that feel approachable, honest, and grounded in real life. Whether you're navigating a season of change, looking for support, or simply curious about what's available to you locally, this is your space to learn, reflect, and feel supported. Because when you start to feel better, you start showing up in all areas of your life, and you deserve that. I'm really glad you're here. Let's get into today's conversation. Today on the Erie Wellness Podcast, I am joined by Taylor Tanner. She's a wife, a mom of 2, and a personal trainer and coach here in Erie. And she is also the founder of Mindful Mayhem, where she helps women build strength while embracing the real, messy, loud seasons of life. She is also the co-owner of a company called Charley. It's a clean recovery brand rooted in natural wellness that she founded with her mom and her aunt. And I really love Taylor's honesty and how real she is about what living a healthy lifestyle actually looks like in real life, especially as a mom and athlete herself. So welcome to the Erie Wellness Podcast, Taylor.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
For listeners who are just meeting you for the very first time, can you share a little bit about your story, and has fitness always been a part of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I came from a very active family, always going on, hiking, go to the beach. I, lived in Southern California growing up. But I think my fitness background really started playing soccer. So I started at age 4, and then I played all the way. I was recruited to play in college at St. Bonaventure University. And then my mom, she's a huge gym rat. So I owe a lot of this to her. I started working out with her, going to the gym. I was 12 years old. I think that was like the youngest that you could go with your parent. And so started going with her, learning how to lift, more of a bodybuilding background. And then got a lot more into it, I'd say like ages 16, 17, before I went off to college, prepping me to pass fitness tests and all of that. But I always really had this love for lifting. And then when I went off to college, I ended up tearing my ACL twice. And so I switched majors and it just is inspired to go into psychology. And at the time had the dream of becoming a sports psychologist, because there was so much, I felt like my injury was, 90% mental, honestly, versus, 10% being the physical recovery inside of things. And so, but that kind of propelled me more into that sport world and the inner workings of that. And then graduated college, moved back to California, ended up, trying to figure things out, got a desk job I lasted about 6 months. I was miserable. I was like, this cannot be. I had a little like picture of like the outdoors taped to my laptop, to my computer. And I'm like, this was not for me. And so I knew that, I needed to be doing something active. And so I decided to go get my certification to become a personal trainer while still having this job, thinking, I'll do this job, and then on the weekends I can go be a trainer. And that's what I really love to do. And very quickly realized, no, this is what I want to do. This is where I'm meant to be in. And so ended up quit the desk job and became a trainer. This was, I'd say, like very, first week of 2015, right at the beginning of 2015. And since then, I've worked at big box gyms, smaller family-owned gyms. I think I've coached now over 1,000 people over the last almost 12 years. Um, and then in 2020, ended up having my first daughter. And then on that point, I went out on my own. And since then, I've had my own coaching business.
Okay. And when did you all move to Colorado?
2 years ago, or 2.5 now, almost.
Okay.
Yeah, in 2023.
Awesome. Well, I love to see the journey progress. And I also, too, love how your parents like instilled a love for being active. And you're doing the same for your kids, too. I always see you out in Boulder or
Yep.
just being outside. So that's fun to see everything kind of progress and the story unfold.
Yeah.
So what type of classes do you teach with Mindful Mayhem?
Right now, small group training, primarily women. Although when I went out in 2020, my business name was Mindful Mommy Coaching, and we can go into that in a little bit. But the last year, I made it a little more broad because I do love working with men too. So I felt like, come to Mindful Mommy, and then I'm like, but I'm a dude, So we went a little broader with that, and so small group training, and then I do semi-privates where there's 2 people, and then private sessions as well.
As we educate our community here on the Erie Wellness Podcast about like the benefits of strength training, can you walk us through some of the like biggest benefits that, some little things would be like lean muscle, hormone balance, things like that?
Absolutely.
Especially
Yes.
for women. I know you train both, but especially in the
Primarily
women.
women, though. No, for sure. Absolutely. So I feel like I could go on and on about this. There's so many benefits. One you just listed right off the top is building that lean muscle. And so if we think of our muscle, think of it like that's your body's engine, right? We need that in order to protect our joints, protect our, support our posture, prevent injuries, and we'll all get into that in a second. But it also helps us use our blood sugar more effectively or efficiently. So we're improving our insulin sensitivity, our glucose uptake, and it basically keeps your energy levels more stable and keeps you from crashing throughout the day. So it's super, super important. It also helps us enhance our neuromuscular efficiency, our joint stability. So essentially helps you feel stronger and more stable as you're going throughout your day. And I mentioned injuries too. So here's some interesting facts about osteoporosis, right? This is a huge factor, something that a lot of women struggle with, especially as they age. And we basically reach our peak bone density at 30. And then after that, if we don't do anything to prevent bone loss, then it's just going to go down each year if we don't, if we're not doing any type of resistance training. And so some statistics. So most adults will lose about 0.5 to 1% per year in their bone density. Women, on the other hand, will lose 1 to 3%, and that'll happen during that menopause, that postmenopause window. So anywhere between 5 to 10 years postmenopause, they're losing their bone density at a very rapid rate. Okay. And so that's why women tend to struggle with it more, especially when they go through menopause. The drop in estrogen is a huge factor in that bone loss as well. A couple other things. So that was more about building lean muscle. But another huge factor is our hormones, and having muscle and strength training actually helps balance out our hormones, because our hormones essentially are those chemical messengers that tell our body what to do, right? And strength training helps us. I would think of it as strength training helps keep those messages clear and more balanced. And so it helps. I mentioned a little bit, but basically when we're talking about blood sugar regulation, strength training helps sugars go into the muscles instead of being stored as fat, which helps with energy, cravings, fat storage, right? So especially if somebody's goal is weight loss and fat loss, that's a huge factor too. And then another big one, it helps balance out our stress hormones, right? Our cortisol. So strength training actually helps lower that baseline stress over time. Yes, we are putting stress on our body when we are exercising and working out, but it's a good stress, especially when this is different from cardio and like high intensity. We're just talking about actual just strength training versus, that's a whole other topic. But if we can lower that cortisol, that's going to help with belly fat, helps our sleep, helps our mood regulation, all of those things. So a couple more points on the hormones. Growth hormone is also released during strength training. So this is going to help us build muscle. It's going to support fat loss. It's going to help tissue repair. So it's super important too when it comes to, we just talked about building muscle and then that recovery process. Very, very important. And then the last bit, estrogen and testosterone. So strength training will really help your body use these hormones more efficiently. And it's also going to support your muscle tone, your bone strength again, right? Going back to osteoporosis, and then also your metabolism as well.
For people, because we're all busy,
Mhm.
for people with packed schedules, like what realistic habits or like just strength training routines would you encourage them to stay consistent with, so that they can see progress?
Yeah. So this will depend on what season of life you're in. Because when you have a newborn, if I'm talking to like, very newly postpartum moms, your life is so different than when you have a 5-year-old versus a teenager, right? And so
Mhm.
your kids' needs are going to play a big role in how you're able to show up too. And so going back from like the newborn days, when I first had my kids, I was there doing all of my early postpartum exercises, my glute bridges, my dead bugs, my bird dogs, really working on core activation, right? And I did maybe 15, 20 minutes while my baby was there doing some tummy time, laying with them and making it fun. That
Mhm.
was where I was at that stage of my life, right? Then your baby grows a little bit, and then I had him in the carrier, and I was doing squats, lunges with my baby as my weight. I
Mhm.
used to actually teach online classes with 4 moms, and it's super fun. So we had our baby like we were raising our baby as our weight, right? Like you don't have to overcomplicate it. You don't even need weights half the time. Like if you're doing just moving your body. So that would be advice for early postpartum moms
Mhm.
is don't be afraid to move your body with your kiddo around. They don't have to be sleeping. It doesn't have to be this perfect nap time because it's never going to fail. Like they're going to finally be sleeping, and then you turn around and get halfway in your workout and they're up, right? And if
Mhm.
you try to find that perfect time, it's never going to happen. And so I would say when the early kids are young, that's a great way to do it. For, working moms, or, maybe your kids are a little bit older, I would focus on just bigger movements. So doing your squats, your deadlifts, your rows, your push-ups, like your big prime movers when you're exercising. If you hit all of those and put a little circuit together, I would
Mhm.
say 10 to 15 reps. So if you're using weights, maybe 15 to 20 reps if you're doing body weight, and you could do 3 rounds of that. Create little circuits. I would say like try to get a total body movement, a little session in there for
Mhm.
15 to 20 minutes, and that's good. And I
Mhm.
think the other misconception is I know like I know a lot of clients and friends of mine kind of struggle with this all or nothing. It's like, well, if I can't do an hour, is it even worth it? If I only
Mhm.
have 10 minutes, is that really going to do anything? It is going to do something. And I think
Mhm.
that's, especially being a mom, that's what we have to shift away from that mentality. Because no, while you're in the season of raising kids, you are not going to have an hour to yourself most of the time. Like maybe
Right.
here and there, and it'll be glorious and take advantage,
Mhm.
right? But it's not going to be your everyday. And so I think if just knowing that a 10-minute walk around your neighborhood, that's amazing. That's so good to be able to get steps in throughout the day. 10,
Mhm.
15-minute circuit doing squats, again, deadlifts, push-ups, and rows. That's perfect because it's going to add up over time.
Mhm.
If you do that 3 times a week, that's, you're almost at a full hour there versus nothing, right?
Mhm.
So I think that's the biggest thing I want to really get across is it doesn't have to be this huge long thing. All those little efforts that you do really
Mhm.
do, add up to something bigger.
Right. So to summarize, for the new moms who you're just trying to get in these exercise snacks whenever you
Mhm,
can, like you are
mhm,
doing your best, you are like your main focus is these little people and taking care of them and just
right.
kind of like refueling your body after
Mhm,
after this pregnancy. But getting in exercise snacks whenever you can. And then as your kids get a little bit older, then start to focus on these little circuits where you're, maybe able to focus a little bit more on these different areas of your body. But get in a 20-minute circuit and,
yep.
a couple times a week and you're doing great. Right?
Exactly. Yes. The other thing actually I could add to that too is when your kids do get older. I mean, now my kids are so used to me working out around them. It's become a thing, right? Like they just know like, oh, mom's working out. And now it's a family activity. So we all go
Mhm.
down to the basement. I pull out, they've got little 1 pound dumbbells and they're like, sometimes they're joining me and it's super cute. Other times they're fighting in the corner. And then I got to break it, like that's realistic too. And that's okay. And so it
Mhm.
does, again, it's not going to be this like perfect, beautiful workout, but any movement that you can truly do for yourself is going to be better than no movement, like no matter how much time you have.
Mhm. Well, I've even seen too, and I don't know exactly where I saw it, but that doing like 10 squats is almost more effective than, maybe it was like booty stuff, than just going on like a 30-minute walk or
I've
something.
seen that statistic as well. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I believe it. No, I think it's
Mhm.
yeah, you could be literally like washing dishes, or whatever it is in your day, do a quick squat, move on, right? It's
Mhm.
again, it's going to be better than nothing, and it's going to add up too.
Mhm. So I did want to bring up one thing, because I've heard this from other women in particular, but yes, strength and energy increase and clothes start to fit better, but the scale stays the same, which for some women can kind of be like, ugh, they're kind of just focused on that number. So how do you teach clients to measure progress in ways that actually reflect what is going on in their body?
Yeah, no, I love that question because it is so frustrating. I have a ton of clients that are like, I'm working my butt off. I'm doing everything literally possible. And the
Mhm.
scale either stays the same or I went up a pound, right? And they freak out, right? And I
Mhm.
totally get that because I know we're so programmed to think about that number. So, a couple things I want to talk about just weight in general. And what's really important to know is okay, you step on the scale and you see your weight, all that's measuring is weight, right? It's not saying body fat. It's not showing water weight. It's not showing muscle mass, bone density, right? There are scales that do that, and that's different. But when
Mhm.
you just step on that scale, right, you go to the doctor's office and it tells you your weight. And honestly, it can feel soul crushing. And I get that when you're expecting to see one thing and you see something else, especially when you're on a health journey.
Mhm.
So, really something to keep in mind, especially as you're getting into strength training and what it does for your body. When you strength train, you're creating tiny micro tears in your muscles, right? And that's good. This is normal. We're breaking down that muscle tissue so that way it can repair and get stronger. But
Mhm.
when this happens, your body responds by a couple things. It starts sending water, sending nutrients, and then also sends inflammatory cells to repair that muscle, right? It's all part of the repair process, but
Mhm.
that adds weight on the scale. So it does not mean you're gaining fat. It just means your body's doing the right thing in order to help you get stronger. So that's one thing. And then
Mhm.
the other thing that happens is strength training is actually telling your muscles to store more glycogen, right? Store more carbohydrates. Because again, we're trying to repair here. So for every gram of glycogen that your muscles store, your body is actually also storing 3 to 4 grams of water. Again,
Mm.
more water weight, right? And so it does not mean that you did that super hard workout and then all of a sudden you're up in like body fat. That's physically, that is not what is happening here. So
Mhm.
just something to really know. I'm also, I mean, it's a toss up because I think sometimes the scale can be beneficial for some, but I also think it can be really detrimental for others. Like
Mhm.
me personally, I do not step on the scale very often at all, really. Years past in my younger 20s or early 20s, didn't have a good relationship with food, with the scale. And it was kind of that mental game where I was thinking, I'm working so hard and it's either going up or it's not going down. And
Mhm.
that really messed with me. And so for me, I've learned I can't go based off of that. Like I go off of how I'm feeling in my body, how my energy levels are. My strength is a big one. Like I love working with my clients and focusing on their ability and what their body can do, right? Let's say they start and we're doing a kettlebell deadlift and they can only do 20 pounds in the beginning. Now we can do 45, like, 2 months later. It's amazing, right?
Mhm.
And we know we're getting stronger just from the sheer fact they can lift more. And so I think focusing on goals and kind of milestone markers that are outside of the scale, I think is super, super important. And really um, focusing more on what your body can do versus just this number that's,
Mhm.
defining you when it's really not.
Right. Well, thanks, Taylor, for kind of explaining the science behind like what is really going on and why maybe the scale isn't budging, but it does make sense in that like we do need water and some of those other things going
Mhm.
on while our muscles are recovering and healing from getting torn during that
Right.
workout. So
In a
it
good
does
way.
make sense.
The other thing too, actually, I left out. So another thing to think about, like more longer term, muscle is denser than body fat, and so the longer term, you're going to be gaining lean muscle while losing fat, right? If you lose a pound, or if you gain a pound of muscle and lose a pound of body fat, you're going to stay the same as well. And so
Mhm.
that's frustrating for clients too when they, again, if we're just looking at the number. But if you have it, I would recommend doing different scales that actually show body composition. That's going to give you a way better understanding of what's going on. Because if you're gaining muscle, losing body fat, that's exactly what we want to happen. Like you're basically you're lowering your body fat percentage. And I feel like that is an important number to look at versus the overall number that, again, doesn't really paint the whole picture.
Right. And to give yourself some grace too. Like, we're not going to be the same size that we were in high school. We're not supposed to be. Our body, it looks different. Some people have delivered babies, and we're just,
Exactly.
kind of embrace where you're at, regardless of what the scale is talking about, and be
Exactly.
proud of your body, of like what it's accomplished over the
100%.
last 10 years.
Yes, I love that so much.
Okay, we're going to take a quick pause here because I want to take a moment to highlight a local business that's really doing important work in our community. Parents, if your child could use extra academic support, I want to tell you about Teachers Who Tutor. Teachers Who Tutor connect students with local licensed teachers for one-on-one tutoring, both in person and online. Sessions are flexible and focused on individualized student needs. From elementary, high school, and even college, their tutors meet students where they are and help them grow. To learn more or get started, visit teacherswhotutor.co. That's teacherswhotutor.co, building brighter futures. Now let's get back to today's episode.
I'm sure too, you also focus a lot on recovery with your clients. So workouts are important, but recovery is also where the magic happens. And one of those areas of the recovery is, or one thing that you can use, I should say, when recovering is magnesium. And that's something that people don't even necessarily realize that they're missing in their recovery. Can you share what led you to your aunt, and your mom creating Charley and sharing what Charley is?
Yes, absolutely. So it's been a journey to get here. We actually started our company 10 years ago. And the idea behind the company, because we actually have about 25 other products. Now, Charley is the standout one. But when we started 10 years ago, we really wanted to essentially change the way that people looked at their health and looked at healthcare. It really started with my grandpa. So this was my mom and my aunt's dad. He got super sick, did the whole Western medical route, specialists, doctors, all the things, tried everything, and nothing worked for him. And he just kept getting sicker and sicker. He had trouble breathing. And he was working with an acupuncturist at the time who introduced him to essential oils. And so he got this little kit, and he had like peppermint and lavender and, like a little starter pack essentially. And I think he put peppermint, mixed it, put it on his chest, opened up his airways, and it was the first time that he had any relief in like 5 years. Like, it was amazing. And he's like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And so he bought a little kit for my aunt because she was super into that as well. And his discovery, though, of essential oils is really what propelled my aunt into becoming an herbalist. She's an aromatherapist now. And so she basically took his story and was like, okay, how can I help more people? And really take what we learned and, help others. And so she started creating products for our family, all different essential oil rollers. And so that was kind of the start of it. And then I guess the real story. So as me being a trainer, my mom, she's a registered dietitian, and then my aunt, herbalist, aromatherapist, we were actually just coming together to start a blog. That was all we were going to do. We had no intent of selling products at all. We were just like, let's start a blog. Taylor, you've got fitness, Tammy, you have nutrition, Jody, essential oils, and we'll just share, knowledge and what we know. And so in the first year, my aunt, again, was making those products for friends and family. And we just had this idea that, like, we could sell these products. They're super cool. They're so amazing. And we're getting great feedback. So let's do that. So the way that we would create our products was from a need, right? It was like, oh, I have eczema. Jody, can you make something, right? And that's just how it would go. And so we had this spray deodorant at the time, and it had magnesium in it because we did a lot of research on magnesium and found that one of its uses, it helps with body odor. And so we had this spray deodorant, and my mom gets up in the middle of the night, goes to the bathroom. She hates when I tell the story, but she's sitting on the toilet, and she gets a leg cramp, and she cannot move. Like, she is stuck on the toilet. It's 2 a.m, right? Nobody can come help her. And so she remembers, she's like, oh, the deodorant, magnesium, because she had done research on it and realized that it helps with muscle cramps as well. So she grabbed the deodorant, sprays it on her leg, and within a minute, her cramp was gone. And she was like, oh my gosh, like I know our next product. So she called my aunt and I the next day and says, we need a cramp spray. And so that was how it started. And so Jody reformulated it and added in different essential oils. So it wasn't a deodorant anymore. It was actually meant for pain, inflammation. It helps increase circulation, all of those things when you're playing sports or, you're active or you have an injury. And so we had our spray Charley for about a year. And then simultaneously, this is when I was competing in the Spartan races. And when someone's doing a big endurance event, you tend to get cramps, right? Especially if you're, mineral deficient. And so myself, I was cramping because you have to jump up and climb these 8-foot walls, and then your calf cramps when you're like halfway up the wall. And it happened, people are dropping like flies left and right. And I'm like, so I can't just bring this glass spray bottle around with me. Like we need something this needs to be a different application. And so we turned it into a gel, which is what it is today. We still have the spray, but turned it into the gel. And over the years have, had different packaging and whatnot, but that has really become our most popular product. And now we're really into the sport world, working with athletes, lots of runners, Spartan racers, high rocks athletes, because it really helps somebody, especially when they're doing a big event. It's going to help in a lot of ways.
Oh, I love that. Going from your grandpa and honoring him with something. And then now, this fall, weren't you at like Disneyland at some sort of race and sharing the product with other people?
Yes, it's been amazing. Yeah, it's been quite the journey. We used to sit at farmers markets and sell one bottle at a time. And now we're like, oh my gosh, our reach is so much bigger now. And it's so great because Charley's really, made a name for itself in the racing community, especially just because it has helped so many people. So yeah, we go to Run Disney, we do Spartan races, marathons, half marathons all over the country. We'll be at a Spartan race in January in California, Run Disney again in January, and then another Run Disney in Florida in February for the Princess Weekend. So we're super excited.
And for anyone who's listening who wants to try it, where can you buy Charley from?
So right now in town, Young Explorers carries it right on Briggs. And then we're also up at Shoes and Brews in Longmont. It's an awesome family-owned running store up there. And then on our website would also be the best way.
And I've tried it. I love the smell. Like it feels so good. And I used it for various things, like on my kids. Like it's safe for kids and adults and everything.
It is, absolutely. Yeah, I can talk a little bit more about its uses too. So definitely safe for the whole family. And that was something really big. Just why we started our company, our business in the first place was our tagline back then was, bringing nature back to health. So it's this idea of educating people on the power of plants, right? And that most medical pharmaceutical products are being derived from an original plant, right? And so like think of aspirin, white willow bark. And so that was something that was big for us, was wanting to create a product that was natural, that people could use every single day, not having any side effects of overdoing it, and that it came strictly from plants, and then was also good for the environment too. So our sugarcane tube is actually made of, our tube is made out of sugarcane and is 100% recyclable as well. But I'll go into some of the ingredients. So Charley, magnesium, obviously that's the main one. So magnesium is a master mineral, what they call it. Basically, it's responsible for over 300 reactions in the human body. Super, super important. And a lot of times people, if they know about magnesium, it's through internal supplementation, right? They'll take their magnesium pills, which is great. You can totally do that still. It's also important for other functions in the body, right? Heart health, helps you sleep, all different things. And so, but the difference is with our product being a topical is 100% gets absorbed. So that's one of the biggest factors, is if your calf is cramping or you're just, you just went on a run and your legs are tired, you can rub it all over your legs, wherever you just worked. If you did an upper body workout, putting it on your shoulder, it's going to immediately go in and relax the muscle. Versus when you take it internal, only about, it's like 50%, if that, gets absorbed and has to go through your whole digestive system. And then, sometimes it does lead to GI upset too. So it is nice to have a topical because you bypass all of that. goes right into the skin. And then the magnesium is actually what goes in. And when you have a cramp or a spasm, typically what that means is, well, there's two different things. Typically, the first one is you have too much calcium. So it's a mineral imbalance. So what the magnesium will actually do is go in, push out the calcium, and get that muscle to stop constricting. So that's the first one. And then a lot of times too, let's say somebody's a big endurance runner and they're hitting the pavement, their feet are hitting the ground. That's a lot on the nervous system. So sometimes cramps happen, even if somebody's super hydrated. I mean, they're drinking their electrolytes. Just because they're hitting the ground so much, it's just like it's overfiring the nervous system. This is just one example, but their body could go into full on, muscle constriction because it's just too much. So this would actually go in and also just calm the nerves down to help that relax as well. But the essential oils too. So I do want to talk on these because this is what actually makes Charley different from other magnesium products on the market. You'll see a lot of magnesium lotions, magnesium sprays, and a lot of times they're just the magnesium, which is great. But what makes us different is we have 3 different essential oils as well. So there's cypress, which is an oil responsible for helping increase circulation to an area. So if you've got a lot of inflammation or an injury, it's going to help bring more blood and help that circulation. We've got wintergreen, which is a natural analgesic. So this is actually going to provide pain relief without anything, without a synthetic menthol, which is in a lot of other products too. And then helichrysum is another one. So we have the oil and also a hydrosol, and that actually helps repair micro tears. So if you're doing a run, an endurance event, you're lifting, working out, you're actually breaking down those muscle fibers in a healthy way, all right? But this will actually help that repair process as well.
Okay. And for people who might already be using, like, what would you say are some of your biggest competitors where this would be an alternative to what you might see just on the shelf?
I would say BioFreeze is probably the biggest competitor. Icy Hot, I think there's that's another one. And they're all, so they work, right? I'm not going to say that they don't work, but they work differently. And what all of those have in common is they all have menthol. Some of those have a synthetic menthol, right? So it's not even a natural compound that's going in your body. What menthol does is it cools the skin and tricks the brain into thinking, oh, we're no longer in pain. So you will get relief. That's why it works, right? You're like, oh, I feel so much better, But then 2 hours later, it wears off and you're right back to where you were. So there's nothing really happening at that cellular level to relax the muscle, help that inflammation, help increase the circulation. You're just getting the pain relief temporarily, and that's it.
For people struggling with different things, what can Charley be used for?
Yeah, so Charley is good for so many different things, right? Especially having those essential oils in it as well. But the main ones that we see a lot of people using it for is just recovery in general. So I would say this can be your daily recovery tool. You do a workout, you go for a walk, you lift, run, whatever it is, putting it on whatever you just worked is actually going to help flush out lactic acid that starts to build up. So it will keep you from getting as sore. It will shorten the recovery period. So that way you can just, get back out there and continue doing what you love to do. So that's one of the main ones. The biggest one, and kind of how it was started and how it got its name for Charley horses, is cramps. So we talked a little bit about, going in, pushing out that calcium, balancing out that mineral imbalance. So if somebody starts to get a cramp, a spasm, they wake up with a shooting calf cramp in the middle of the night or wherever on the body, put it on immediately, and it will immediately start to relax that muscle spasm. So that's another big one. And then if somebody has an injury, a muscle pull, joint inflammation in any joint, any micro tears, anything like that, it's going to help with inflammation, help calm everything down, and then basically just, help the body start that repair process.
Even just growing pains for kids, I was thinking about, because we've been dealing with growing pains.
Yes, thank you. Yes, actually, I use it on my 4-year-old daughter all the time because it is so, so good for growing pains. Yeah, it was definitely one of those I wish I had as a child. It's great for that. So what we do as a preventative measure, we put it on her before she goes to bed at night. And then if we need to, if she wakes up in the middle of the night, obviously reapply. But using it as a preventative has really helped us avoid those nighttime wake-ups.
Okay. Well, good to know, because we do have so many athletic people here in Erie and the Boulder area, trail runners, it's ski season right now. So maybe you're not necessarily keeping up with an exercise routine during the week, but then you go skiing and then you're sore and all the things. Or even our
Exactly.
young athletes that we have like at Erie High School or in the surrounding high school areas that have a workout routine that they're working on. And I know that the parents love to find ways to support them and take care of their bodies during all of it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, at any age, truly. I would really say too for adolescents, high school, college players, because there really isn't, I mean, it's hard when your kids are young to really, even like college level, to really nutrition wise, to really get them to eat the right things, right? Like that
Right.
is a challenge. I remember going off to college and I was like, woo, I can eat whatever I want. But if I had something like this that would at least replenish my, minerals that were depleted during my sports, that would have been a
Mhm.
game changer. So yeah, definitely for kids of all ages.
So why do you feel like you're so passionate about helping people replenish magnesium in particular?
I think for me, this comes from a personal journey. When I was in college, I had all these like very unexplained health issues,
Mhm.
and I was 19. I basically had all premenopause symptoms at 19. My cycle was all over the place. My hair was started falling out. I was getting night sweats. My nails stopped growing. Like it was crazy. And I went to the doctor, had CT scans on my brain, all these things. They couldn't figure anything out. Everything was normal, right?
Mhm.
And at the time, granted, I was having my college diet. That was a huge factor too.
Mhm.
Nutrition was one, but I was taking, and I had my ACL surgeries and had all these injuries, and I was taking way too much ibuprofen. I won't even say how much because it's like scary. A ton of
Mhm.
ibuprofen every day and using icy hot basically. And that was like what I did, right? And so you're getting all these like toxins from all over. And my mom, being who she is, we did a food sensitivity testing. I took out all the foods that were not good for me. And I just really cleaned up my life. And this was also around the time, and I graduated college at this point now, and my aunt was creating all the oils for our family, and I pretty much just switched everything over to natural products and essential oil based. No chemicals anymore, and my life completely turned around. All my symptoms went away. It's completely fine. And it was amazing. And so for me, my personal journey is really, this non-toxic now lifestyle, and seeing just such a huge impact that it had on me, how I feel, how my mental health is, all of
Mhm.
that. And so when we created Charley, it was like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. Like all athletes need to know about this, because I wish that this was something that I had access to, back when I was playing college soccer. And it would have just been a night and day different experience for me. So I feel like I'm really, really passionate about getting Charley out there to let people know that these products do exist. Like they don't have to be putting these toxic chemicals on their body. And in fact, when you actually use a natural product, it is beneficial in so many other ways as well.
Yeah, replenishing all of those nutrients instead of
Mhm.
depleting and causing that inflammatory response all over your body.
Exactly.
So, one last thing that I wanted to ask you about. So, you are currently navigating a long term injury. For anyone who's listening who's going through something similar, what advice or encouragement would you offer them from the perspective of a fitness professional?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been really hard for me, I won't lie. So I'm dealing with a very large disc herniation that is pretty much taken me out. Like I don't know how else to describe it. It has,
Mhm.
I've always prioritized movement, and I've always known how precious it is to be able to move my body. So this injury has just really reinforced, how I want the quality of my life to be moving forward, and that revolves around being able to move. So this has really forced me to slow down. So I'm trying to learn all I can from this injury, because I do think there are lessons every time you go through something like this.
Mhm.
But I think a couple things I've learned is your community, and really surrounding yourself with good people and a good support system is huge. Because if you're just trying to go through something, any struggle, any struggle at all, if you're by yourself, it's so hard, and it can be really isolating. You can be really depressed. And so I think talking about how you're feeling with people is huge. I've been pretty vocal about my injury just because I want to share with other people, and maybe it'll either help somebody, or, maybe they just won't feel so alone if they're going through the same thing.
Mhm.
And honestly, I think that's been the best thing that I've done, because I've had a ton of people, I would say like probably about a dozen people have reached out to me in my small, like in my close circle, that either they are going through almost the exact same thing, or they know somebody going through the exact same thing. And most everyone's like in their 30s. And it's been really eye-opening too, because a lot of them are moms. And so my brain's going like, well, why is this happening to all of us moms? And so maybe a conversation for another day, but I'm super interested now on, how does our, pregnancy, postpartum, how's this relating to spine health and what happens afterwards? So yeah, it's been, I think opening up and talking about it has definitely been the most beneficial thing. So that way, at least I don't, I'm not going through this all by myself.
Right. Well, thanks, Taylor. I just appreciate you sharing. And yes, you have been like very vulnerable and sharing like the ups and downs of it, but then also trying to be optimistic and listening to your body and like what it needs that day. So, and you're right, community does play a huge part in it. So, reaching out to your community and being a part of something bigger, I think, as well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you.
So you and your family recently moved to Erie, you said 2 years ago. What do you love most about this area, and what would your ideal family weekend day look like?
I feel like we honestly hit the jackpot moving here. It was just, I don't even know how we found Erie. I just feel like it was so magical and the way it all laid out. And it was, and so there's something about the second I got here, it felt like home. Like there was just a feeling about it. And where our house is, we live in a little cul-de-sac, and our neighbors are amazing. There's little kids everywhere. And it was just really, I think, again, we got lucky with who we live next to as well. But I feel like we could slow down living here. And that's what I wanted. Like where we came from, amazing area, but I just felt this pressure, this like hustle bustle all the time. And so I wanted to come somewhere where I could breathe, because I felt like I need to slow down to be a better parent, and where my kids can, I can feel safe them playing around and going to the park and whatnot. So I feel like it's such a family oriented community. And I just feel like we moved here and we instantly made friends who now feel like family. So it just feels so great living here. And let's see, ideal day. Going up to Chautauqua is definitely our favorite right now. It's like the perfect, I mean, you can do so many different hikes, but there's perfect ones for kids that are like a little mile up and down, but they get to go straight up the hill, and it feels like we are climbing a mountain, but it's a small mountain, which is great. And they're 4. And so I think just having access to that, being so close, going to Boulder, get a bite to eat, do a little shopping. But I'm a super outdoorsy person. So anything that I can do outdoors and just like seeing the mountains every day makes me so happy. And I can't wait for my kids as they get older that we can explore more, because I feel like we've barely scratched the surface of what the state has to offer, but I'm so excited.
We do live in such a beautiful state. So
Yes.
if we're encouraging those people who are listening who are like, I just need to get out more, like go, you can go up there. It's a 20-minute, 25-minute drive and you're there. So
yes. Oh, another one actually though is Macintosh Lake in Longmont. Take the paddleboard out there. I love it. Like people go out just for sunset in the summer. Everyone's like blowing up their paddleboards, cruising out there, watching the sunset for an hour and coming back. I'm like, does it get any better than this? Like, this is so amazing. So that's
so good for our nervous system, getting fresh air right before bed. It's amazing.
Yes, exactly.
Alrighty. Well, as we step into a new year and begin setting new intentions, I hope this conversation feels like a reminder to take things one day at a time, and you don't have to do everything perfectly or all at once. Just show up, do your best, and keep choosing what supports your health in this season of life that you're in. Taylor, thank you so much for sharing in this conversation and for giving us all something to think about as we head into this week. Thank you for listening to the Erie Wellness Podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode. All right, friends, before we wrap up, here's the part I need to share. This podcast is for educational and inspirational purposes only. I'm just your friend behind the mic. Nothing shared on this podcast creates a patient relationship with any of our guests or replaces the guidance of your physician, professional coach, or other qualified expert. and the views shared by guests are entirely their own and don't necessarily reflect the beliefs or values of the Erie Wellness Podcast. My goal is to simply create a space for real, open conversations that help us all learn, grow, and feel a little more connected on our wellness journeys. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you back here next time. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Erie Wellness Podcast. If something from this conversation resonated with you, I hope you'll take it with you into your week or share it with someone in our community who might need it. To subscribe, just head to the main page for the Erie Wellness Podcast, right where you're listening, and tap subscribe. And don't forget, when you start to feel better, you start showing up better in all areas of your life, and you deserve that.